worked at the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. That's how I got to know Troy. His dad is a wonderful person and so warm and so loving, and so is Troy. Troy is also a Chamber of Commerce member, and I have the privilege to introduce him today. So I'm going to do just a quick little bio, and then I'm going to let him take it away here to help fill us in on how do we win business virtually, which is something that I think we all need to learn during this time. I think we are all going to be challenged and tasked with that. So Troy Parkinson, he is a speaker and facilitator. Troy shares his down-to-earth approach with clients throughout the United States, internationally, excuse me, and in his 20 years in the film industry, he has produced television series for Discovery Health and then the History Channel, and also has served as director of production for the Minnesota Film Commission, promoting Minnesota's cities and venues to companies like Disney, HBO, Netflix. During his tenure with Sage Presence, Troy has coached, trained companies over $4 billion. That is the cost of that US Bank Stadium. That is a lot of money. In winning projects and helping individuals and teams increase their confidence and networking skills for both live and virtual sales presentations. So I have the pleasure to introduce Troy Parkinson. I'll let you take it away, Troy.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's great to be here and great to be back with the group. Last week, we had the opportunity to do this live. I should say live. We had the opportunity to do it in person. It's always live. It's just whether it's virtual or whether it's in person. So it's a pleasure to be here with you all today. Just a quick overview of what we'll be speaking about. I'm going to jump in and out of the PowerPoint presentation because I want to give you an experience of sort of really getting the view of the process. And I would invite you as well during the presentation, if you can, to switch to speaker view, because I'm going to point out a few things that might be better seen when it's full screen versus the Brady Bunch approach or Hollywood Squares. But first and foremost, today's agenda really is about talking about screen presence versus stage presence and the general overview of camera tips to help in this virtual space. We're going to talk a little bit about message design and the art of sound biting. We're going to talk about synergy and presenting with a team. In some situations, either you're going to be together as a team, as I saw one group in their new office. Congratulations, by the way. And for all of us who happen to be working from home, we are envious of those who can actually be in an off space. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to present as a team, whether you're in the same room or whether you are virtually like this experience here. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the two key steps to making an authentic connection with the person that you're communicating with in the Zoom space. So I'm going to just pop off of the agenda here a second, and I want to just take a moment here while we're still in the sort of the Brady Bunch space to just get by a show of hands, maybe is the best approach to that, or a thumbs up or a thumbs down. How many of you have had to do sales presentations in the Zoom space for clients? So thumbs up or a hand up. Okay. Or thumbs down. Okay, great. And in the chat space as well, feel free to plug some thoughts or questions into the chat space as we're going through this. I really do want to make it an interactive experience to provide you the best value possible to share our insight and our experience with Sage Presence. As we stated in the introduction, we've helped architects, engineer, and construction companies over the last 20 years as a company, but over the last number of months in COVID, win up to $4 billion in project wins. So what does that mean? Well, that means that we work with teams to hone their skills in this virtual space and their ability to communicate effectively and authentically with the person that they're communicating with across the way. So I got a thumbs up on the those who have had to do it in the virtual space. But in the chat box, if you don't mind, can you put in some of the challenges or some of the questions that you faced doing this work in the Zoom space? What did you like? What didn't you like? What's frustrating? What are the challenges that your industry in particular faces, whether you're in event space, which is maybe hard to do the tour through the virtual space, or whether you're, a photographer or a videographer or a florist, or, how do you present this information in here? So feel free to plug that in. I'll watch the chat box as we continue. But I want to talk a little bit first about the difference between sort of the stage presence and the screen presence. As you can probably gather, it's pretty simple to tell that there's a big difference between a live experience and a virtual experience. And that biggest experience, and this is maybe when you want to shift over to that speaker view if you can, is that you want to consider yourself where you're locked in this box. Okay? So I'll do my best pantomiming, but my box is limited here and it's limited here and it's limited here. And so what you'll find is that in that live experience, you get to see someone from head to toe. You get to get a sense of the room in that environment as well. And so the important thing for the camera tips, I'm going to just run through them quickly here. And there's nothing necessarily new here, but these are things that you want to definitely keep in mind when you're working in this space. So as you'll see in my environment, you'll see I've got a sort of a standard head and shoulders shot. You'll also notice that I've sort of maintained a certain background in my home, right? Now, the truth is I wish this was a convenient spot in my house, but right now, and I have a family, I have 3 children and my wife are all here as well. So they all have to go upstairs because I'm in the dining room, living room. And the truth is it's the best spot for me in my house to give me a little sense of depth. It allows me to dress the set a little bit. And you really do want to think about kind of dressing your set to help represent and present yourself. The other thing that I do is I stand. As you can see here, I'm standing in this experience. And this tends to be the case when I'm doing a presentation or I'm presenting. If you can stand during the experience, it gives you an opportunity to sort of change the dynamic in the presentation. So standing is an important dynamic of that as well. It allows you to adjust, it allows you to gesture, it allows you to sort of move in and move out in the conversation. And those are some of the things that are important as well. A lot of the times people will ask about virtual environments. Should I use a virtual environment in the space that I'm doing? Now, when we coach teams, we recommend that they avoid the virtual space. And the reason being is because it's not perfect yet. It tends to be a little bit rips along the edge. The key is not great. So then sometimes if you move your hands or you put your hands around, you'll end up losing fingers. And then sometimes you can lose an ear or you can lose hair depending on how your hairstyle is, et cetera. And so some of those dynamics of being able to do that as well. A couple other key things that come in are ideas of headsets. Should we use them? Should we not use them? What we found, at least in this current first and second phase of COVID, if you will, is that I just am really using, I'm actually just using my laptop camera, and the audio from my laptop right now. The reason is because a lot of the clients that we work with, they don't have additional tools. They don't have additional items. So sometimes it's difficult for them to be able to have all of these items, and it might be a limiting factor for them, or you can get a little bit nervous, like, oh my God, I don't have the technology and the equipment. You can actually go a long way with the camera lens that you have and the microphone that you have on your computer as well. Now, I'm seeing some questions come into the chat box. I'm going to jump over to answer some of these, and then I'm going to jump back to my PowerPoint to make sure I've covered all of the camera tips. Challenge to make sure the space around you is presentable. Okay, so yes, so part of that is finding a spot in your home where you can actually kind of preset something or at least know what's there. The truth is that my computer right now is also, the camera lens is at mouth height. The biggest thing that I notice when I coach for people on cameras and on the presentation side of the Zoom experiences is they're not really conscious of where their camera's going. So either they're way open and they're shooting up their nose, or they're shooting the back of their ceiling, or they're down like this. And so they might look a little, so it does take a little bit of insight and a little bit of practice to just adjust that camera, bring that camera close to the mouth as you're seeing here. The other thing that's important to recognize as well is it's okay to adjust your laptop. If you have to put it on some books, thankfully we're a musical family in our house, so I have a music stand, so I'm able to put my laptop on a music stand and lift that music stand up to get it to right where I need to be. It is one of those things that can just make a world of difference in terms of how you're presenting yourself effectively. And the important thing is you don't realize it, but the camera really, and this has been something since cinema began, since television began, is there is a distinct reason why camera lenses tend to be a certain height. This feels natural. This feels sort of depleting, or I'm small in my environment. This has me sort of overpowering, and now I'm looking down at you. And there's a subtle dynamic in how we process that information When bad guys want to look bad on a screen, they'll tend to shoot them from below, and they're looking down at you. When you want to make someone feel small or meek, you put the camera below them. So those are certain things to think about as you're looking in your own space. Another comment that comes in here, a big challenge is making that establishment a warm connection in a virtual space seems challenging. I'll speak to that in a little bit. One person commented, I found it works really well and have done virtual sales meetings before COVID due to the number of couples wanting to meet me. That's great. The interesting thing is this video technology isn't anything new. We all remember the early days of Skype and the ability to do our Skype meetings, and then there was FaceTime, and even Zoom as a company existed before the pandemic. It just so happens that they really took the market share when it came to doing this work and creating this experience. So yes, having exercise and experience in this as well. For my potential wedding planning clients, I found that they actually prefer Zoom meetings for initial consultation, saves time and money. Absolutely. We have found that as well. We used to travel a lot with Sage. We would travel all over the United States. We have clients in California and Denver and New York. We're all over, we're traveling, and this allows us to be more efficient and more effective in our communication. So yes, absolutely saves time and money. It's been a big challenge for potential corporate clients, my existing wedding clients who I really want to connect with. Corporate clients and communicating in this space is different. You'll find a lot of teams have Zoom, they have meetings, they have WebEx, I've heard of even one called Blue Jeans. I mean, there are all of these different platforms that people use, and people are getting zoomed out. There's definitely a sense of feeling exhausted after being on this space all of the time. But there is still a way to make that authentic connection and to make that feeling of authentic connecting important. The corporate world is a different environment. They're moving at a different speed. They're not at home as well. Truth is that nobody really wants to be working out of their home. This isn't an ideal environment. I've made it the best environment that I can, considering the situation that we're in. One comment comes in from Paula, walking tours are challenging with multiple buildings to show and lots of info to share while walking. No, not ideal, and I need to be more professional. Yes, thankfully in our presentation work and a lot of the meetings, you're stationary in one spot. Having the opportunity, and whether it's putting your phone and using the Zoom interface through your phone on a GoPro stick or on a selfie stick, the ability to actually walk around and showcase the space. But if you can think a moment in terms of those experiences and talk and sort of plan out, when we talk about screen presence versus stage presence, screen presence requires some more focused thought. As a producer and director in the film and television world that I come from, there were weeks and if not months, sometimes years in preparation for a project, and the storyboarding and the process of moving it out. So it does take extra time. Too often I've seen people go, oh, well, I got a Zoom meeting or I've got a presentation I got to do. I'll just do it like I normally do, which is just show up and go. Well, it's a little different here in this environment. You have to make sure that you can create a space that's comfortable for everyone and comfortable for yourself. So taking a few extra minutes for you to feel confident in the space that isn't naturally a confident creating experience is important and is worth the extra time. From Sharon, the pianist for parties, I've done some Zoom auditions for my piano services. Getting good sound quality from a piano has been challenging. I'm currently using Scarlett 2i2, excuse me, I'm wearing my contacts, which makes reading tiny text a little more difficult. Interface between my digital piano and my computer. Zoom only allows one sound input, and I've had to do a workaround with a mixer. I can see that. That has been a big challenge in presenting as well, especially folks that want to use video in the Zoom space. We try to recommend to teams that are doing presentations to win big projects. The US Bank Stadium is an example. We helped a team win the Zuckerberg Hospital in San Francisco. The teams that want to show the bells and whistles of their design and their experience or their audio, this platform really isn't excellent for that. So I applaud you, Sharon, for being able to find workarounds. And sometimes people feel like, oh, well, I want to show a video on the Zoom space. You're better off showing them a YouTube link that they can look at later, where the stream process is much better, because it does tend to get a little bit glitchy in this Zoom space. So I'm going to go back to my screen share here a minute. I want to make sure I cover all of my points when it comes to screen presence and stage presence. Quickly, a quick review on tips for the camera. Feel free to screen grab this as well. I'm happy to share this with the team here and have it sent out to you as well. But set your stage, look pleasant, not crowded. You know, try to ideally, and I'm going to adjust here. I've got water on my note here, but I'm going to go rogue here. You know, trying to, when possible, I will, you know, be in meetings where I have to have something against my background and I'll go tight. Ideally, it's not great because it feels kind of crowded. You feel stuck up against the wall. You don't have a lot of the same flexibility to move. So being able to give yourself a little bit of that space, it just changes the dynamics. It gives a little bit of depth as well. It also helps establish a little bit of personality for the person, for you as well. Because the important thing to remember in a service-driven industry, as we all are, we're in professional service, you know, they're hiring not just a DJ, they're not just hiring a wedding planner, they're not just hiring a photographer or a florist, they're hiring a person. And it's that personal connection that's so important in this situation to make that authentic connection. Light your set. You want to kind of do indirectly from above. When it comes to lighting, there's something called 3-point lighting. If you want to look up the logistics on film and television, I try to use natural light as possible, bringing as much light. Obviously, you can buy the ring lights that exist now, and there are easy ways to increase it. But don't be afraid to get light. The other important thing to try to avoid, and I'm going to do this as best I can, is this. Try to avoid getting yourself in front of a window where the window blows out and you become dark. So you can see how I simply, just by spinning 360, trying not to show my other family mess over here in the background. When you spin 360, it's helpful as well. Stand or sit. I'm standing, as I mentioned, to show respect. Sit can create a real working session, but don't be afraid. It gives a whole different level of energy and dynamic. I mentioned camera at mouth height, and then match your team. If you're going to be presenting with the group, whether it's at a business meeting or whether it's even at a panel discussion or at a networking event, you know, if you're coming in with your team, try your team to all look the same. When I work with the team at Sage Presence, we all tend to wear a sport coat, a button-up shirt, or we're framed in roughly the same way. We all kind of have that same presence, and that's an important step.
Hi, everybody. This is Matt Sherry with Complete Wedding and Events Minneapolis. We do events. We do photography, videography, DJ, photo booth, lighting, day of coordination. At Complete Wedding and Events, we capture, we create, we do. If you're having an event, check us out today, completewedo.com/Minneapolis.
Talk a little bit about message design. Message design is important, and I'm going to share this briefly with you because there's a story structure model that Sage Presence has created. The founders of Sage Presence all come from a filmmaking background. So what they did one day is they said, you know what, we've got to help people tell their story more effectively, their elevator pitch more effectively. And so what we want to be able to do is provide them a structure that's simple. So they took the screenplay structure from Hollywood screenplays and they pared it down into this simple structure, which you'll see here. Ultimately, every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that usually in a business world means there's a problem, a solution, and an outcome. What you want to do as you begin to share your story and communicate your message is figure out who the main character is of the story that you're telling. And ultimately, you want to be the hero to help that main character. So in a wedding environment, the main character could be the bride and groom or just the bride or whoever that client is that you're working with directly. And their problem is they've got a wedding now that they have to do in the middle of a pandemic. Nobody wants to do their wedding in the middle of the pandemic, especially as the rules change. But we'll say pre-pandemic or post-pandemic, they have a wedding and they want to make it their best day possible. They want that happy ending, literally, with a wonderful wedding and walking down the aisle and having that experience. And the solution in the middle is what actions you can do to help. So in essence, the main character, and you can tell these stories with ease. Now, mind you, I'm kind of condensing this conversation into a very brief overview, simply because of the amount of time. Traditionally, we take about a 3 to 4 hour workshop to really unpack this process of how to tell a story effectively, and then how to bring your message to it as well. How do you communicate your value proposition or your communication effectively within this story structure model? But I'll tell you that stories can be told out of order as well. You don't have to just start with the beginning. You can start with the end, or you can start with the middle. But one of the challenging things that we find is when folks talk about what they do, when people talk about their business, they tend to jump directly to the middle, and they don't help paint that picture for their client. So many of you were able to do that in some of your presentations, which I really appreciated. It gave me a quick understanding of your business by the way you told your story. But in this example, for example, I'll say that I'm a photographer, and I'll say, you know, when brides and grooms come to me, they want their best. They want to capture their day to the best of their ability. They want to make sure that their memories are left forever on their photographs in their house or their videos, so their children and grandchildren can see the beauty of their wedding day. Our company is here to help provide that, and that's where you tell the middle solution on what you do, and then you bring them to their happy ending. So I'm going to share that quick. Feel free to screen grab this as well. And there is a worksheet that I can also provide to help you kind of unpack this a little bit more effectively. I want to talk about synergy and connection now. This was a big question that came up about how to make that authentic connection to folks. And so what I want to share with you is, I'm going to jump off the screen share here a moment and talk a little bit about that synergy and connection. And actually, what I would like to do is I'm looking for a volunteer. I want to do a sort of a 60-second exercise. So is there any brave volunteer there, or I'll pull, oh, perfect. Okay, great. Susan, go ahead and unmute yourself, Susan.
Hi.
Hi, how are you today?
Great, how are you?
Good, I'm well. So one of the things that we're going to practice on, and one of the things probably many of you are familiar with when it comes to sort of the synergy of building team relationships in this, is the dynamic of when do I communicate, who do I communicate with, and how do we not step on top of each other? So one of the things we work a lot with teams on is something called tag teaming. And tag teaming is the ability to have a joint conversation with someone without the ability of feeling like you're stepping on top of each other. So Susan, remind me, you officiate weddings, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so at one time in my life, I got the formal Universal Life Church membership so that I could officiate a wedding in Mexico for a friend of mine. Granted, he got married in the States with the Justice of the Peace, and I was more just for the wedding ceremony itself. So we'll talk about officiating weddings. And all I want to do is I want to just volley back and forth, and I want you to hear how we can share the space and not interrupt each other and not step on each other. So I'll start, and then you pick up when I pause, and then I'll pick up when you pause, and you'll see how we can work together, not having practiced this at all, but really allowing the process to work. So at a special time in your life, you really want to make sure that your wedding is exactly what you want. And that's why it's important to pick an officiant that's really going to speak your values and your desires.
Exactly. And at Affordable Ideas, I've built a strong team of a variety of personalities. I have men and women of all walks. We have different backgrounds so that every couple can choose the person who they feel like is going to be best matched to reflect them on their day.
And that's so important, because when you can have that bond, not only with your spouse, but also with the team and the people that are bringing you together, you know you're creating a lifelong experience that just will warm your heart and will warm the hearts of the people that watch the ceremony as well.
I couldn't agree more, Troy. It's really such a special and intimate experience to officiate a wedding for a couple. And a lot of our referrals come from past couples who have shared their experiences of working with us and encouraged their friends and family to check us out when they're getting married.
Excellent. All right, T. Perfect. Thank you so much, Susan. As you can see there's a process that's natural in our communication, but this Zoom space can be a little bit clunky sometimes in that. One other key tip I would recommend when it comes to team synergy is the right of way goes to the interrupter. Now, we're not going to do this here in this moment, but one of the exercises I tend to do is I build a relationship with the person I'm going to communicate with. And then if by chance I happen to interrupt them, they know to pause and step back and smile so I can finish my thought. And if they interrupt me, I pause and smile and let them finish their thought. And the reason for this is because we spend so much time apologizing to each other in the Zoom space. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no, you go for it. And it's this awkward cadence. Therefore, when you work with a team member and you know, oh, if they interrupt me, I'm not going to apologize, or I'm not going to wait, or him and her. I just know they're going to finish. And I'm going to be graceful, and I'm going to smile, and I'm going to have that experience, and then I'm going to come back again. I want to jump now to those two key quick things, and I'll wrap up here with this. The two key things to make that authentic connection in this Zoom space. You might have noticed that I've been doing this the whole time, maybe glancing every now and then, but can anybody tell me one of the first things to make that authentic connection?
Looking at the camera hole.
Looking at the camera hole. That's a great eye contact. Absolutely. I shared this last week in the virtual space, and it's very easy, or excuse me, I shared this last week when we were all live, and it's very easy in a presentation where you think about it. I'm going to give eye contact to this person sitting over here. I'm going to give eye contact to this person sitting over here. I'm going to give eye contact to this person sitting over here. Then I'm going to give eye contact to you. In this environment, there is only one place for eye contact, and that's right there in the lens. So even though many of us will look at our screen to try to look at the people while we're talking or while they're talking because we want to make that connection, we want to see what they're doing, in reality, what happens is that you can clearly tell I'm not looking at you. And after a while, that can be a little unnerving because it's like we're not used to that. Or we're not, it's sort of like, the situations in professional environments where people just don't give you eye contact, and you're very clear, like after a 30-second to 60-second conversation, you're like, oh man, no matter what I do, they're not going to look me in the eye. And so you do your best to have a conversation with them. But eye contact in the virtual space by looking at the screen, it can be exhausting. There'll be days where all I do is stare at the green dot. I'll occasionally glance down or I'll look around, but I'm spending 90% of my time staring at that dot. The second thing is appreciation. The ability to bring appreciation to this environment can help warm things up. And I'll do a quick example of that. I can talk about public speaking without any sense of appreciation. And I can give you the information without any sense of excitement or enthusiasm. And I can give you everything that you need to know about your wedding and tell you what you need to know and when you need to know it and how you need to do it and how much it's going to cost you. You can see there's information, but there's not a connection. There's not that authentic, warm feeling. So in this particular instance, if you bring an excitement to it, if you bring appreciation, recognizing that you can pretty much appreciate anything. I can totally appreciate this green dot staring at me the whole time. I can appreciate it because I know that through that, I'm actually able to make a connection to you. So on your screen, you might be seeing me in speaker view, and you can see that I'm really reaching out to you. I really want to know what's impacting you, how I can be of service, and how I can help you get from your not so happy beginning to your happy ending. What kind of tips and experiences can we provide to you to make your wedding day experience that much more wonderful? And listen, we understand that this is a difficult time. You can feel the difference between the two. You can see when it's just information and when it's actually a connection of eye contact and appreciation. So I know it was sort of a lot of information in a short amount of time. I do want to open it up for any final questions that anybody might have about working in the Zoom space, or if there are any other thoughts or questions that people want to add before we move on to our next step. Either in the chat box or feel free to chime it in too. Going once, going twice. All right. Now, is it me or did we just lose Elizabeth?
She'll be right back. No sweat. Yep, she'll be right back. No worries.
All right, very good. Very good. So with that, I do want to just leave one final note. If any of you have any questions about this process, then we have additional resources on our website. I'm going to jump to my PowerPoint one last time, jump ahead to eye contact and appreciation. And then if any questions, feel free to reach out. Feel free to screen grab this if you'd like. My personal cell phone number's there, so feel free to call me if you have questions or you want to work through anything that you're challenged with. It's my pleasure to contribute to the community. My email is there at troy@sagepresence.com, and our website at sagepresence.com has a number of resources online. We have blog posts that talk about confident presence. We also have some downloads on how to present yourself effectively. We also have a number of webinars there as well. So please feel free to reach out and connect. It was a pleasure connecting with you all today. I'm going to say goodbye in this moment because I have to be prepared for another presentation at noon. But it was a pleasure to connect with you all here, and I wish you nothing but the best in these uncertain times. But remember, you know, you all have a unique spark. You all have a unique, authentic aspect of who you are and the service that you provide. And if you can bring that to this awkward space, it'll help in continued business for you, not only now, but in the future. So with that, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Oh,